There goes my hero. Watch him as he goes. There goes my hero. He's ordinary. Don't the best of them bleed it out, while the rest of them peter out? Truth or consequence, say it aloud. Use that evidence, race it around. There goes my hero. Watch him as he goes. There goes my hero. He's ordinary. Pluto's my hero, leaving all the best. You know my hero, the one that's on. There goes my hero. Watch him as he goes. There goes my hero. He's ordinary. There goes my hero. Watch him as he goes. There goes my hero. He's ordinary.
It's okay. Gives me a chance to share it out. Why is this thing freezing? Doo-doo. All the wonderful, lovely people out there. 2 minutes, you guys. We're live in 2 minutes. About a minute and a half away, you guys. Make sure you guys are checking us out.
I wanna shoot, baby. Here I go, here I go, here I go. Again, girls, what's my weakness? Okay, then chillin', minding my business. You sort of looked around and I couldn't believe this. I swear I stared, my niece, my witness. The brother had it going on, something caught her. Wicked, had to kick it. I'm not shocked, so I asked for the digits. Oh no, that don't make me see what I want. Slip slide to my swiftly. Felt it in my hips, so I did back to a bag of tricks and a bit more.
Send a minute away, people.
Liquor, lollipop should be lit. Came to my sisters and I chill for a bit. Don't know how you do the voodoo that you do. This was just a hell, make me wanna shoot, baby, shoot, baby, shoot, baby, shoot, baby, shoot, baby, shoot, baby, shoot, baby. You packed in your stack, especially in the back of the one to thank your mother for a butt like that. Can I get some fries with your shake, booby? Looks could kill you, would be, and it was your shotgun bang. What's up with that thing? I wanna know how does it hang? Straight up, wait up, hold up, Mr. Lover. Like Prince said, you a sexy mother. Well, I like 'em real wild, beat boy style by the mouth. Smooth black skin with a smile.
Welcome to Stab Comedy Theater. It's time for Beyond the Fed. Please welcome to your screen, already on stage, your host, Buddy.
Hey, everybody who's at home. I'm going to give you a few seconds if you guys haven't already to join us. If you guys are using one of those outdated websites like Facebook or YouTube and you guys want to catch the show live and talk directly to me, ask any questions you might want to ask, go on over to twitch.tv/stabcomedy. Over there, you'll find that there's a lively chat once they show up. Oh, Jess. Hey, Jess, our wonderful Obscure Movie Trivia Champion, is in with us. That's where to catch the show live. I am editing the audio out for a podcast. But if you guys want to catch us live and be part of the show, ask some questions, go on over to twitch.tv/stabcomedy. Over there is where the chat is. And if you want to give a follow, that's free. It's a great way to find out when Stab's going live and a great way to catch up on all the wonderful shows that Stab has here weekly on their Twitch channel. You can also catch those on YouTube and Facebook, but it's more lively on the Twitch audience, so go on over there. And Jess, of course, is the host of the No Boys Allowed show that is here every third Saturday of the month, which you guys should check out. All the weekend shows you guys should be coming out to. Thursday, they've got the open mic, which is always a bunch of lovely, fun people doing some comedy on a Thursday night. Friday nights and Saturday nights, their shows, and most Sundays, their shows now, too. So come on out to Stab on the weekend. Get some really nice beer. This Friday, you'll be able to see the Obscure Movie Trivia Show live. We'll be doing that, and then following us is Strip Comedy, which I was a part of the last one, and it was so much fun, and I'm so excited to see what they do for this one. But if you want to be a part of those, come on over to Twitch, or come on over to Stab on the weekends. That's a great way to support. Some other ways you can support, of course, is buy the merch. That's on the website. It's hoodie season coming up, you guys. It wasn't out all today, but it's getting there. So go get one of those. There's 2 different designs. This show, if you guys have not seen it before, October is the last one for a while of the No Boys Allowed show. Ooh, you guys better catch that one. So get on it. If you guys have not seen the show before, this is Beyond the Fed. Basically, this is where I get to talk my favorite thing in the world, which is professional wrestling. But like most people my age, I'm in my mid-30s. We grew up watching WWF, WWE. You grew up on The Rock and Stone Cold and DX and all of that stuff. But I was so obsessed with wrestling as a kid that I had to go beyond that, and I had to find other things. So, of course, I watched your WCWs and your ECWs. And in today's episode, we will actually be talking about some WCW stuff. But we are going beyond the Fed because the whole idea of this show is to introduce you guys and new viewers of wrestling to some new characters, to probably or hopefully your new favorite wrestlers, and to showcase some of their best matches outside of the Federation. A couple of these you will be able to catch on the network, but I will be able to tell you where you can catch all of these matches so that you can watch them directly. And something happened recently in professional wrestling outside of the Federation that kind of triggered me into really wanting to do this show and this episode in particular, which is... Oh, okay, never mind. They're talking in the chat, and that's all good. We love a lively chat. But the Great Muta, Keiji Muta, great legendary professional wrestler, one of my all-time favorites. He is retiring. He has his last 2 shows in March of 2023, and he recently appeared on an episode of AEW Dynamite where he helped an old rival of his, and it just kind of sparked my whole love and interest and made me go back and rewatch some of his matches, and I had decided to put this list together. And basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you 5 matches of his career that you should check out. I'm going to discuss each one of them and kind of the history of it and stuff, and kind of talk about why you should go watch it, why the matches are so important, and why I chose these 5 matches as opposed to Keiji Muta's best 5. And I do want to reiterate that I am 4 out of these 5 are all Great Muta matches. Only one of them is a Keiji Muta match. His character, the Great Muta, was terrifying to me as a little kid and caught on very much as one of my favorites, whereas Keiji Muta never really. He was just a great Japanese star who came over to America, did a bunch of amazing things. But as the character of the Great Muta, I was just obsessed. So I had to definitely check out all of his great matches, and I decided to put together a list of 5 of his matches that I've watched dozens of times, some of these maybe even more. And the thing about Muta was he was a scary monster who didn't really have a his backstory was basically that he got his powers from a sorcerer. That in Japan, that's all you really needed. And he would spit out the mist, and his moves were very violent and quick. It was kicks, it was punches. He was the first person I saw doing somersaults in the ring to deliver a kick. He was very extra, which I enjoyed very much. And there was a thing about him where like he would spit the mist, and each one kind of did like a different thing. It was kind of like Superman's kryptonite rocks, you know, like each color had a different power and stuff. And we'll talk about, you know, in some of these matches where he debuts some of those different colors and things. But I wanted to talk because he's retiring, and I was like, oh man, I've been watching him since I can remember, and I didn't know that his career has gone on for 37 years. He will be wrestling 37 years when he finally retires, which is crazy because, like I said, I remember him from my childhood, and I'm in my mid-30s, so I've been watching Muta forever. As you can see in the picture next to me, he's a very scary man. This was one of his classic face paints that he would walk around in, and it's very iconic because it was very simple. It was usually one bright color and then the black kanji around his face that represented the Great Muta and the spirit that inhabited him when he was the Great Muta. So the 5 matches I picked, like I said, none of them are necessarily because of work rate. There are some very great work rate matches that I will discuss. However, the stories that are told in all of these matches are absolutely perfect. They're brilliant from start to finish. And I picked these 5 matches because I think they very much represent the vast difference of all the different stories that can be told with just a spooky, scary character. The very first one is actually against one of my other favorites. A lot of these are against some of my favorites, but this one in particular is the Great Muta versus Jushin Thunder Liger. This is at New Japan Pro Wrestling Thunderstruck in October of 1996. So at this point, Jushin Liger has been a superhero. He's based off an anime character. The character is this bright colored character, and when we meet him, he's such a superhero that all the fans thought of him as like this, just this anime character who could never do anything scary or violent. And at this time, Muta was at his best of being just the absolute worst. He's the only person who was a Japanese star who could turn an entire Japanese crowd who respected the art completely against him. And in this one, the story was for months they were building up to Liger and Great Muta, where Great Muta would try to get Liger to use a chair, or he would try to get Liger to use weapons, or he would try to get Liger to cheat and be evil, and Liger just wouldn't. And he would constantly lose because Great Muta would cheat him or make fun of him or trick him in different ways or use weapons against him. And eventually at this match, we've gotten to a point where right before this, the Great Muta has attacked Liger and he has ripped his mask. He's bloodied up Liger. We haven't seen Liger's face, but he's bloodied up Liger, and he's promised in this match he's going to completely destroy Liger, rip his mask off, and expose him for the fraud he is. During the match, we get a lot of just Muta beating the hell out of the smaller man. He wasn't much smaller than the Great Muta, but he was a junior heavyweight, and Muta was a heavyweight at this point. So in Japanese culture, that meant that Muta was the stronger man. And in this match, they played that very well because Muta's following him around, kicking him so hard that his legs fall from under him. He's clutching at his ankles and legs every time he falls to the ground. Every time he tries for a high flying move, Muta just moves out of the way, and then Muta punishes him for it. And eventually we get to this point where Muta attacks Liger in the ring, and he rips his mask. And you'll see the character next to me. That is Kishin Liger. The debut of Kishin Liger is the first time we see this character, and what it was is the demon side of Jushin Liger. The whole time we had been told about Kishin Liger, but we had never actually seen him. And during this match, when his mask is ripped, he stands up and you see the face paint, and he stares. This is the moment. He's staring directly at the Great Muta, and the Great Muta is terrified. A man who strikes fear into the hearts of everyone is completely terrified by this creature because he made this creature, essentially. He's poked and prodded Jushin Liger to the point where this guy comes out. And it's at this point where the match completely flips. Now, Kishin Liger is the aggressor. He is the villain of the story, and he is chasing down and trying to hurt and maim the Great Muta. And it's at this point where we don't even get a wrestling match anymore. The Kishin Liger character actually brings out a railroad spike, a legitimate railroad spike in which he just chases the Great Muta around. Great Muta then has to wrestle his way around this man who's trying to stab and murder him. And the Kishin Liger character we only saw in two other occasions after this, once again against the Great Muta in a match, Kishin Liger versus the Great Muta, and once again a couple years ago when Liger himself was going through a retirement tour, decided to bring the character out once again, and it was just as scary as a 55-year-old man doing it too, but the younger, scary demon painted version, he's spending the whole match, he's legit trying to kill this man. He's chasing him around with a railroad spike, and the Great Muta is just terrified. He's trying to get the ref to help him. The ref basically stands back and he says, you created this. Liger eventually rips off the uniform that he's wearing, the shirt, and he's also got kanji and demon painting on his chest as well. And it's really cool that they they put a lot of paint on it. You can tell because he had to wrestle the first half of an entire match with the mask over the paint, and it didn't wash off the paint at all. Like, he looks terrifying. He looks fully painted there. And the match ends very hilariously because up to this point, Muta had been using mostly the green mist. We hadn't seen the red or the black mist in a very long time. And at this point, when Liger is trying to murder him, Liger runs at him with the railroad spike, and Muta is just able to move out of the way, and Liger spikes into a table. And at this point, Liger's trying to get his spike back to maim Muta, and Muta's able to use the red mist to essentially paralyze Kishin Liger. We hadn't seen the red mist in a while, and like I said, each one had like a different kind of power to it, and the red mist was supposed to be more powerful than the green mist. And so we see the red mist. It knocks Liger basically loopy. A couple of moves, he hits an amazing Shining Wizard. Then he does this amazing moonsault 1, 2, 3. Muta wins the match. Muta's just it's the first time where he's like elated that, oh no, I created this demon, but I was able to slay the demon. It was really cool because from here on out, the feud became, the Kishin Liger character versus the Great Muta. And I think that the feud kind of after that just became, oh, what crazy violence can we get this guy to do? But this was really the turning point of that, and Liger's character legitimately turning to a star, because before this he was the light heavyweight superhero babyface. Everyone loved him, and this was the first time we got to see him as a legit badass. And I think that was really cool difference that this match brought. And I love this match because it changes a character that I love, and it also shows a different side of a character that I was obsessed with in the Great Muta. And the Great Muta, he does a great job in this one of looking scared, which he never does before. The Great Muta's character is all about not acting, not showing fear, not showing any kind of emotion. But when he finally pisses this man off and the man snaps, he's like, oh fuck, I'm deeply in trouble. And I think it's a great watch because you get to see two sides of the match. You get to see one complete ass whooping, and then it flip-flops into something much more violent. And you can check that one out on YouTube. It's a great YouTube watch. Just type in Jushin Liger versus Great Muta. It's the very first one that pops up. Always fun to watch that one. You can find better quality versions of it on like Daily Motion and things like that, and I believe you can actually catch that one on New Japan World if you have it. If you don't have New Japan World and you want to catch a lot of good Japanese wrestling, that's a great place for it. It's very hard to navigate, but if you just navigate through years, you can find it a lot easier. This one, like I said, was in October of '96, so just look at '96. You'll be able to scroll to October. It's a lot easier that way. But that's a great match you should watch and check out. And like I said, the Kishin Liger character is terrifying, and it continued to get terrifying after that. This next one, number 4, is very important because it created something called the Muta scale. This match was something I learned about as a kid, but never actually got to see until I was much older, until I was an adult. And my uncles would always tell me about how Muta was famous for this match where he bled so much that the crowd honestly thought he was going to die. And I was like, well, I got to check this match out. So number 4, like I said, is the only one where it's not the Great Muta character. It's actually Keiji Muto, but I think it's actually worth the watch. So I think you guys should check out, like I said, Keiji Muto versus Hiroshi Hase, which is the second match. As you can see by the picture next to me, that is Muta basically bleeding like a stuck pig. That's Keiji Muto. He's just bleeding crazily. Hiroshi Hase was the champion at this point. He wasn't a very popular champion. He was pretty bland and boring. He didn't have a look that stood out. He had like a his whole thing was like he was a tough mustache wielding guy who wore bright colors. That was how he would try to represent himself, as this tough guy who wore bright colors, and if he could wear bright colors, he can and beat you up, you know, you looked worse for it, I guess, was his whole character. But I would watch it. I watched a lot of his matches as an adult, and I never really, like, he never really clicked for me. But watching this match, you definitely see a different side of him. Once again, this is Muta bringing out a different side of his opponent. And this one's special because Muta is terrifyingly bloody in this match. And nowadays you see this kind of blood on any indie, but I can tell by the crowd's reaction in 1990. This match took place in September 14th of 1990. So 32 years ago, this match took place. And you can tell that this kind of blood was not normal, and especially in Japan. The Muta scale, like I said, was invented because of this match. And basically what the Muta scale is a scale of 1 to 10, basically, this being a 10 of how bloody a match is. And in the 90s, you know, anytime there was a big busted open wrestler, they would go, oh, yeah, but what is it on the Muta scale? Because Muta in this match was just dripping blood. And it starts happening around 8 minutes into the match, and it's about a 25-minute match altogether. And he just never stops bleeding. And you see doctors are concerned around the ring, and you see the audience changes from a very respectful clapping and like, oh, this is wonderful, to, hey, is it safe for us to be watching this? There's gas every time he hits the mat and blood flies. Every time he gets on offense, they're like, yes, please end the match. Let's get out of here. His opponent always tries to finish it. It's not like his opponent's trying to bleed him out or kill him or hurt him in any way. He's trying to finish it, but Muta just will not give up. He refuses to give up. There's an ex-retired champion. I think it's Giant Baba. I just watched this match, but I didn't watch the scene afterwards. But the whole time he is trying to prove to this mentor of his that he can do this. He can beat this guy, and he can win the championship. And this is his first big major championship win, because he does win. And it was huge because you can see in the fans that once he gets this win, that they're just like, oh, thank God, please, this is over. It's not your typical, oh, the baby face underdog just won the championship and we're so excited for him. It's legitimate, oh, thank God this is over, because it's fear. And watching it now, you can look at it and you go, oh, this is ridiculous. I've seen 12 guys on a random indie show I paid $12 for bleeding so much worse than this, and getting thrown on razor blades and forks and stuff, and you see all kinds of craziness. But it's the crowd's reaction, it's Muta's refusal to stay down, that the whole time you're just like, oh, this guy is legit, and this match is legit. And Hiroshi Hase, I did give him crap for not being that cool or that great, but he was a champion in a time where the pillars, the 4 pillars of New Japan that would come to be, were just now getting, you know, wet under the ears, and they were just starting to become something. And he kind of was he was one of the ones who was holding it down at that time, because to him, you know, Muta was this young kid who was just coming up trying to steal his space, and he was, and he did, and that's how the story ends. But he puts up such a fight and such a refusal to give up his spot that you honestly have a lot of respect for him at the end of it too, because he's, like I said, he's never in the fight to hurt or maim his opponent. Muta gets busted open on a random outside plancha, but then the story keeps getting better because Muta refuses to stop bleeding, and he kind of refuses the doctors away, and it's one of those times where like an accidental blood in a match made it so much better. Like the match is so strong, and you can watch it, and it's a legit good wrestling match. If I had to give it a star rating, 1 out of 5 with no blood involved, we're talking like a good 3-star match, something you can watch any day of the week and be happy with. But the story of the blood and the story of the audience being terrified is just something you kind of got to watch, because it's amazing. It really is. You can't really find a good version of it. It's a very scrambly version on YouTube. If you do catch it, Daily Motion also has a scrambly version. But there is a Japanese YouTube like knockoff called Yui, YUII dot whatever the Japanese one is. That if you have access to it, you can watch it, and it's worth it. It's worth going the extra way to find a good quality version of it, because it's scary. Like the blood that's coming out is a lot of blood. Like I said, if you watch any kind of indie nowadays, they try to bleed much more than this, but this looked terrifying because you're just like, this audience believes that this man can die, and you start to believe it too watching. And that was one of the cool things about the Great Muta was, especially around this time, I would say around his 88 to about 92 run, he just bleeds so much. He bleeds for everything. He comes over to America where he does his excursion. In Japan, especially in New Japan Pro Wrestling, they have this thing called the dojo, and all new, young, and up-and-coming wrestlers go through the dojo. For the first couple of years, they're not allowed to have any kind of character, any kind of motivation other than go out and learn how to wrestle. And they're all wearing black trunks and black boots and white wrist tape. It's very simple. Go out there, they get their ass kicked. They learn from greats. And then about year 3 or 4, depending on how good you are into your career, they send you on an excursion. And this is you going around the world, usually to like a couple of different countries. And you learn their style of wrestling for about 6 months to a year. Then you come back and you're a star. You've developed a character. You've developed who you are outside of, I'm Japanese wrestling guy number 5. And the Great Muta character was kind of born in the USA because of the way he would creepily walk around the ring, and the way he would be very different from your average style of Japanese wrestling. But it was because he was so crisp, and he wanted everything to look real, and he wanted it to look like it was faster than the eye could really catch it, but you saw it. He was very good at all of that. And in this match, it's him coming back to Japan, and Japanese promoters going, oh no, we don't want the demon character. We want you, the professional wrestler, Keiji Muto, to be a star. And this was, him versus Hiroshi Hase was his star-making performance. And he totally knocked it out of the water. And speaking of, like I said, his American run was basically defined by one feud. And of course, we'll get eventually to the singles match that defined that whole feud. It's going to be no surprise that that's my number 1, because it just is when we're talking Great Muta matches. But I started looking, like I said, when I started compiling this list, I started looking back at all my favorite Muta matches from those WCW days. And I have to say, most of them are in Japan. Anytime he was able to work the character in Japan, and you could see him terrifying little kids in the audience. Because American kids at this point were watching Freddy Krueger and Michael Myers. Like, they were desensitized to villains and demons at this point. Whereas Japanese fans really believed that Keiji Muto, their hero, was possessed by a demon. But there was a couple of times in America where the character really worked, And one in particular that I think is just brilliant that I watch very often and I go back to, which is Sting and Ric Flair, as you can see. Great rivals teaming up against the Great Muta and Terry Funk. This is at Halloween Havoc 1998. The match is a electrified cage death match. And if you look at the match itself, it's the first ever, in my opinion, Hell in the Cell. And it's basically the cage is not on the ring apron. It surrounds the ringside area. And there's weapons used. There's a manager inside the cage. It's very weird, but the top of the cage, if they ever try to escape the ring, is got electrified barbed wire at the top. So if you try to escape, you'll get electrified and you'll have to come back down. And it was funny because none of these guys were friends. There was two major feuds going on in the late 80s that revolved around these four guys. There's actually about 3 feuds that really mattered because Sting and Ric Flair were on again, off again friends. At this point, Sting was just joining the Four Horsemen. That would not last very much longer as the Four Horsemen would kick him out for wanting a title shot against Ric Flair. But at this point, he was still very firmly in the Four Horsemen. But he was the good guy. He was always the good guy in the Four Horsemen. This is the point where they were kind of trying to make the Four Horsemen good guys before they realized that 4 rich guys who jump people and their whole character is Rolexes, drinking, having sex with women, and beating people up as a group. Those aren't the definable characters of good guys. So this match was really cool because, like I said, it was 2 different feuds come into one. At this point, Sting and Ric Flair are friends, so they're not feuding, but they had just feuded before, and they will just feud a few months later. Sting is feuding with Muta. Like I said, that was Muta's feud, and we will, of course, talk about the match eventually. But this match was a great part of their feud because a lot of the tag team was Muta staying away from Sting. He wasn't afraid of Sting, but he was playing mind games with Sting. And Terry Funk, his partner, who was at the time feuding with Ric Flair, his whole characteristic of the match was to antagonize Ric Flair, to bring as much weapons and violence into the cage as possible, to egg on the Horsemen's manager at the time, Ole Anderson, and to basically break as many rules as you can in this no rules hardcore tag team cage death match that they had going on. However, they did tag in and out. The partners did stay on the apron and wait for tags for the most part. Eventually it breaks down into a brawl, and it was awesome because Funk and Flair's whole rivalry was the rich old piece of shit and the old crabby bastard cowboy, and they couldn't be more opposites, but neither of them were like good guys. So I remember as a kid I would watch the feud, and they have a Texas death match at one point where they're trying to put each other through a table with a pile driver, which at the time had just recently broken somebody's neck. So they're like, that's the most dangerous move in the world. And I just remember watching the match and turning to my uncles and going, who's the good guy? Who do we cheer for? And there was never really an answer because they always liked the bad guys. So they liked both guys in that match. And in my opinion, I was like, I don't understand. Terry Funk can't be a good guy because he just said he wanted to murder that man. And that man can't be a good guy because he said some very derogative things about a fat guy in the crowd. So I don't understand who the good guy is. And in this match, it was kind of similar where there was maybe 3 bad guys and Sting in the match, where Sting is honorable. He's not using weapons. He's not using the tables that get presented. He's not using the bat that gets thrown in. He's not using any of the violent weapons. He's not even using the cage. At a couple times he throws Muta into the cage, and at one point I think he throws Terry Funk into the cage. He presses Muta into the cage. Very impressive. But he's the ultimate good guy in this match, where Flair is okay cheating. He's facing a demon guy, and he's facing a crazy hillbilly who wants to murder him. And the whole match, he's just hiding and running from these guys. And it's great and wonderful because once Ric Flair turns it on and just starts wrestling, it's beautiful. And Muda's really the star of this match. That's why I picked this match, because Muda basically has two different matches with Ric Flair and then with Sting. And it's interesting where he's dodging Sting's attacks, but he's going directly after Ric Flair, and you see his paint gets completely flaked off except for just a little bit at the front by the end of this match. And that's when we see Sting and Ric Flair come out as the champion, or as the winners, because Ric Flair puts poor Terry Funk in a figure four for about 3 to 4 minutes. It honestly feels like a lot longer than that, but I was counting it today when I was watching it, and it's about 3 or 4 minutes that Funk just has to sit in this. There's no rope breaks, and Sting's not letting Muda come help him because Sting has knocked Muda out, and every time Muda comes in, Sting just knocks him back. And eventually we get the win from the good guys, as it were, I guess you could say. But Ric Flair was definitely not a good person in this match. But I love this match specifically for Muda and as a way to show the Muda character, because it shows that he definitely doesn't play well with others. Him and Terry Funk are a terrible team. But it also shows that he's so versatile that he can make a crowd, that Terry Funk couldn't make a crowd really cheer Ric Flair. But this man, this scary demon man could. And I think that's very special. And if you want to watch that one, that's the first one you can actually just watch on the network. Like I said, Halloween Havoc 89. Check it out. It's a wonderful one. The next match is a silly one. If we're talking work rate, this one is a 2 stars at best. If we're talking in-ring action, you're not going to see a lot of in-ring action. But I will just explain the stipulation of the match before I get into the story of the match. Stipulation of the match is a no ropes, exploding barbed wire, landmine double hell death match. Essentially, there's no ropes on 3 sides of the ring, or on all 4 sides of the ring. And on 3 sides of the ring, we have barbed wire that is rigged with explosives, so anytime somebody hits one of the sides of the ropes with barbed wire, explosions go off. And there's a 15-minute timer that will explode the entire ring. There's explosions rigged around the ring, and a big explosion happens at 15 minutes, regardless of whether or not the match is over. And when you get matches like that, you typically do see that you're not going to get like a great work rate match, but it's all about story. And this one tells such an amazing story, because up to this point we have seen Muda bleed, we have seen Muda do all kinds of crazy stuff, and yeah, there you'll get it. We've seen Muda do everything that he's done up to this point, and in this match we get to see him face a character that out-weirds him. Anyone who's watched the show long enough and can tell the logo that we use, the Beyond the Fed logo, is a complete ripoff of FMW, which is a promotion by Atsushi Onita, one of my favorite wrestlers of all time, somebody I grew up idolizing. And I watched a lot of his matches, and he was famous for death matches. And in this one, he was trying really hard to provoke the Great Muta. The Great Muta had never done a death match, and Onita wanted him to come out and do a death match. But Muta was like, no, I'm not going to do it. So Onita created a character called the Great Nita, which was essentially the same thing. A wizard or a magician, somebody had bestowed him these powers. He was going to use these powers against the Great Muta. It was essentially him ripping off and making fun of the Great Muta, but also creating a very creepy and scary character himself. And it pissed Muta off so much that he met him in his own style of match. Like I said, an exploding barbed wire, no rope, landmine, double hell death match. And the match is not good, like I said. Like, these guys are not doing planchas and jumping off the top rope or doing anything like that. It's strictly bloody. It's strictly violent. But the whole thing is the Great Muta is completely thrown off by the Great Nita. The Great Muta, this person whose whole character is to get into the minds of his opponent and to freak them out and to scare them and to ruin their time. At this point, he has just got this guy who is just so creepy that he is out creepying him. He's got this green painted tongue, and he's wrapping himself in barbed wire, and he's running specifically into explosions without being thrown into them, and the Muta is just thrown off. This match is about maybe 12 minutes long, maybe 13, and Muta beats him. Muta beats him very easily, and it's not like a great match, but then Muta watches as this man stays in for the explosion, and Muta leaves with such a weird, like, I don't know if it's respect, I would say, but it's definitely newfound interest in Onita. And this is, at this point, Onita was probably the most over of anybody in professional wrestling in Japan. His death matches were getting so popular. His company was at the time maybe 1 or 2 as far as Japanese promotions. He was maybe a year or 2 away from being asked to be a political figure in Japan. He was that popular. This was right around the time he was probably making a lot of money from the Yakuza. And he was just having the most fun. And you can see in this match that, like, he's having the most fun. And Muta's a different person because this guy got to him. And I think that really developed the character that we later saw Muta become, which was just this creepy, scary man. Like, you see him later down the line with the green tongue and all of that. And it's really interesting to see the progression of who the Muta character becomes after meeting the Great Nita. And that was our 4th one. Our last one is honestly my favorite Great Muta match. One of my favorite matches of all time. I wouldn't say like these guys are the fastest paced wrestlers in the world. I wouldn't say this is like your lucha libre kind of match. This is America's hero. This is Captain America versus Japanese's. This is a villain. This is the Dragon. This is the Great Muta versus Sting. There you can see it, Sting in his big American outfit. Whenever he wore this, he was like representing America. And I think I remember distinctly 3 times he wore it. But it was the Great American Bash twice and this one. This one was the Japanese Super Show. We're talking about Great Muta versus Sting in the Japanese Super Show of 1991, New Japan Pro Wrestling and WCW. This is another one that you can actually see on the network if you look it up. It's a classic feud. Sting versus Great Muta is so much fun. It is honestly Sting's greatest rivalry. I do not care if you want to argue Ric Flair or anybody else. It is 100% the Muta, because Great Muta was the opposite of Sting. He was face painted bright, but he wasn't power. He wasn't loud and bobacious. He wasn't anything like that. He wasn't bombastic. Sting would punch you and scream to the crowd. Sting's whole character was like riling up the audience behind him and getting this fever pitch of audience members just on his side. And he was a raw, all-American boy with the bleach blonde hair at this point. And the Muta-Sting rivalry just really showed us that, oh, Captain America can fight. And Captain America isn't, Sting's not just like, oh, I'm a good guy. A lot of the stories, like I said, with Great Muta was him showing his opponents and his rivals another side of themselves. And I think this was the first time that he was actually able to do that. And with Sting, it was so great because Muta was a heavyweight. Muta was considered a heavyweight in Japan and considered a bigger guy. And Sting was just so much bigger than him. Great Muta was maybe 6 foot tall, maybe 5'11", somewhere around there. Sting is 6'4", 6'3". He's got gigantic arms, gigantic legs, and he's able to lift Muta up with such ease. And if you watch this whole card, actually, it's really fun to watch because all the Americans, even the good guys, are booed because Japanese audiences are so in tune with their Japanese stars, and they're very respectful to the Americans, but it's our guys over your guys. And this is the one match on the card where the Japanese fans were so terrified of the Great Muta, and they were like, who is this guy? Because like I said, this was right after his excursion and right after creating the character, and the character became big in America. And this match in particular was, the Japanese fans were like, who is this person? How do we react to him? And why is this villain representing us, where Captain America, Sting is just being cheered, Sting is lauded after, Sting is loved, and these Japanese fans just love him as well. He could do no wrong. Eventually, we get to NWO Sting a dozen or so years down the line, and he becomes more popular than American Sting. But at this point, I don't think there was a more popular character. He was John Cena in China. He was The Rock anywhere The Rock goes. He was the biggest star that WCW had as far as a hero goes. And he was facing the Great Muta. And the Great Muta was always able to bring it up an extra notch, the intensity out of Sting. He would start out his typical way in this match of hit a big move, cheer on the crowd would get behind him. But then eventually he got to the point where he was hurting after every big move. Great Muta kept kicking his legs from under him. The Great Muta kept working over his ribs. The Great Muta would work parts of his body. And you could tell that Sting was weak by the end of it. And Sting does this gorilla press slam at the end. And we get the finish, and the crowd loses it. The crowd, you could have said, he basically gave them all $1 million. That's how excited these people were. They were so excited for this American to beat their Japanese star. And I think that speaks very highly of who Great Muta was. And at this early point in his career, he's only 5 years into professional wrestling. He's headlining the biggest show in his company. And at that point, WCW's their story, and it's the biggest show of the year, the biggest for this promotion, and he's able to turn his countrymen against him. And I think that's super impressive because not a lot of people can do that. Not a lot of characters have that power, but Great Muta always did. And that's what I'll say for him. We'll wrap this up in a minute here, but I'll say that Great Muta was and is amazing. Even now into his 60s, he just went and won the Noah GHC championship and held it for almost a full year. The man is old, and he's still so impressive and still so snapping. And I'm so excited to see that he's getting so much love and respect on his way out of the business and on his way into retirement. And I hope that he does get his flowers, and that, the WWE realizes that he deserves a Hall of Fame nod, and that there should be Great Muta DVDs and toys all over the world because he is amazing. As far as this show goes, I'm going to continue to bring you guys new things that you guys should watch outside of the Fed. I love talking wrestling. Like I said, Great Muta was a great subject because I'm a big fan of his style, and I grew up obsessed with him. I do have a list of people that I want to introduce you guys to, but because of his retirement tour, I kind of wanted to, and his just jumping on Dynamite last week, I really wanted to talk about him today. And I'm glad for any of you guys who joined us. And if you catch us later, or if you catch us on the audio version, I thank you there too. If you do have a suggestion of somebody you would like me to talk about, a Japanese star, I would be happy to. Like I said, I have a couple lined up. The next one I do want to do for you guys is the reason why I do this show, Mr. Atsushi Onita. The Great Nita match will not be on there. It's more of a Great Muta match than it is a Onita match. That's the next one we're going to do because he is one of my all-time favorites. It's going to be a lot of deathmatch stuff. We're going to show a lot of bloody, violent stuff. I got some cool pictures, and maybe we'll even do some videos and stuff. But appreciate all of you guys watching at home, all of you guys who watch later. If you do want to support Stab, of course, make sure you are following along on twitch.tv/stabcomedy. If you want to give a little bit more of a direct help, of course, you can do the Patreon and Venmo links above me. And, of course, buying the merch. It's hoodie season. Your girl needs a hoodie, too. So get your girl a hoodie so she won't steal yours or whatever the saying is. Buy 2 hoodies. Buy both designs. And also come out to a show. This weekend, like I said, you can catch me doing the Obscure Movie Trivia Show. That's this Friday. But its normal time will be every second Friday of the month and every 5th Friday of the month if we have it. And it's going to be an amazing show. Got some really fun returning guests for you guys this week. So excited. Right after us is Strip Comedy on Friday. So you guys want to see a bunch of comedians take their clothes off while telling you jokes, come on out. Be sure to laugh, but not hard enough to where they have to keep their clothes on, though. Keep your laughs as hard as you possibly can to yourself. That's the only time I'm ever going to tell you guys to do that with a show. But I hope to see you guys out that night, and I hope to see you guys this Friday. Hope to see you guys in the chat for the next show. Thank you all, and good night.
Thank you, everybody. That is Beyond the Fed, and that is us for the evening. Thanks for joining us. That's what we have for today. Is that a little loud? Yeah, it is. Maybe I should turn that back down so I can say goodbye to you. That's it. We're going to send you where? I'm not sure. I was leaning towards Max Drag, if they're still going. And it looks like they are. Let's go check. Oh, yeah. Wow. That looks like a show. So we're going to send you guys over to the Max Drag show. And come back here tomorrow for Inside the Box. We'll be doing some of that. Because why wouldn't we? All right. So hold on for the raid. I'll see you guys back here tomorrow. Have a good night. Hold for the raid.